War. War never changes.
Some kind of war junkie?
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the War 102 podcast, where we explore the doctrine, theory, philosophy, and history of warfare. I'm your guide, Paul Darling, and I want to share what I learned in nearly 30 years in uniform. So let's get to learning about the most influential activity in human history, war. Welcome to episode 60, the 12-Day War that wasn't. Syracuse and Alcibiades will have to wait. Unsurprisingly, recent events demand discussion. So the much ballyhooed 12-Day War is over. This is Trump's branding of the exchange between Iran and Israel, with missiles from the former and mostly, but not entirely, airstrikes from the latter, culminating in a seemingly flawless strike by American B-2 bombers dropping 30,000-pound penetrator bombs, the GBU-57s, on the hardened and buried Iranian nuclear facilities, with an additional massed cruise missile raid on above-ground facilities. Iran, mimicking its anemic response to the killing of Soleimani during the first Trump administration, launched a symbolic and pre-coordinated attack against an American base in Qatar that did zero damage. Unsurprising, considered Qatar is the most pro-Iranian Gulf Arab state outside of Iraq, which might be described as an Iranian proxy at this point. Trump quickly announced a ceasefire between Iran and Israel that interestingly demanded an immediate ceasefire from Iran, yet gave Israel an additional 12 hours of fighting. While I am sure Netanyahu couched his need for this extended period to follow up on minor targets and evacuate ground forces operating in Iran, he instead launched a massive final attack that embarrassed and infuriated Trump, culminating in the now famous rant that they have been fighting for so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they are doing. Of course, within that statement belies the inaccuracy of Trump's own description of the 12-Day War. Israel and Iran have been at war since the Shah fell. Much like the 100-Year War between England and France, this does not mean bullets, bombs, rockets, and missiles have been traded for 46 straight years. Rather, that the war is ongoing, a 12-day battle in a far longer war carried out in Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, Jordan, and now Iran itself. And for all the negatives of the Israeli government and the IRGC, they do know what the fuck they are doing. In fact, and this is no disservice to Trump, they know far better than Trump what is happening and what is at stake. I must delve a bit into my read of Trump, as personalities drive warfare no less than armies and nation-states. Churchill, Hitler, Stalin, and Roosevelt all drove World War II in a direction that would most likely have been far different had different men been in charge. Trump is a deal maker. It's his identity since the 80s. His book, The Art of the Deal, highlights this. He is an optimist who refuses to see things as a zero-sum game. He always believes that something can be achieved that benefits both parties. Additionally, while professing a faith in God, one can't call him a man of deep-rooted faith. There's much more to say about Trump, but I focus on these two areas as I believe this hobbles his ability to understand the Iran-Israel war. In the first, Israel and Iran are in a zero-sum game. Iran wants to destroy Israel, and Israel does not want to be destroyed. There's no deal to be made. It's impossible. But Trump is a deal maker and insists upon believing that he made peace where he actually enforced a ceasefire of unknown but certainly finite duration. The Iranian desire for the eradication of Israel is not a logical position outside the ethereal realm of religion. Trump, I believe, sees the chance of death to America and death to Israel as a branding exercise for public consumption within Iran that the IRGC actually doesn't want or believe in. As he could never envision a leader of a great nation actually desiring such a policy, he projects this pacifist position onto the supreme leader and his various subordinate ayatollahs. And perhaps he is right, but Netanyahu thinks they mean it. And with 1,400 dead Israelis from October 7th and another additional 1,000 dead IDF in Gaza hunting for still missing hostages, he has no reason to doubt it. Returning to a point made several times in the podcast previously, it doesn't matter if it's true. It only matters if they believe it. While Iran chants death to America with the same frequency and fervor that they do death to Israel, the exponentially larger size, larger population, and far greater distance renders the former not much more than a rhetorical flourish, even if Iran has killed over 1,000 Americans since 1979. For Israel, even a modest Iranian nuclear arsenal would be enough to kill 90% of Israelis and effectively eradicate, as well as irradiate, Israel. The penalty for discounting the Iranian threat is existential to Israel. And while it took 40 years for Iran to kill 1,000 Americans, discounting the very real possibility they were responsible for TWA 800, they managed to kill more Israelis in the space of mere hours due to the geographical and demographic realities of the region. The idea that Netanyahu, the longest-serving prime minister in Israel's history, who has held various posts to include foreign minister and defense minister, a former member of the most elite special forces unit in Israel, the Sayeret Matkal, as well as a graduate of MIT, doesn't, and I quote here, know what the fuck he is doing, is ludicrous. Likewise, the IRGC crafted an amazing network of proxies throughout the Arab world, combining Shia, Sunnis, and Alawites to a common purpose. They expertly manipulated the United States into handing over the government of Iraq to its, at very least, allies. No matter how irrational their Friday prayers may appear to secular Westerners, they very much know what the fuck they are doing. As for Israel's last-minute barrage, their motivation is multifold. The first, and most obvious, is they want to do as much damage to Iran as they can. Whatever tricks they use to gain unfettered access to the airspace throughout Iran may well be nullified the next time they try. The weaker Iran, and specifically the IRGC, is, the better it is for Israel, and perhaps strengthens the opportunity for internal revolt, which I doubt will happen. Secondly, while Israel was quite happy that the United States executed a mission which, in the absence of ground forces, Israel would be incapable of carrying out, Israel has suffered repeatedly from the perception that they are incapable of military action in the absence of Western assistance. The war in 1967 was initiated by Nasser in part by his belief that Israel's 100-hour of conquest of the Sinai in 1956 was only because they were assisted by England and France. Netanyahu wanted to ensure the IRGC and the greater Iranian public understood that Israel can strike with or without American assistance. Their deterrence policy demands the perception that they can operate anytime and anywhere they want. If it appears that Israel can only strike when a friendly American administration is in power, this emboldens its enemies. Lastly, as much as a common talking point is that America dances to Israel's tune, the reality is since 1948, the standard story is the Muslim world starts some stuff, Israel pushes that stuff right back in, and the United States steps in and says stop, while the Arab and now greater Muslim world begs for a return to peace that was broken due to actions or threats on their part. True in 1948, in 56, 67, 73, 82, true throughout the latter Lebanon conflicts, and certainly true now in Iran. Israel wants to keep going. Iran was desperate for the fighting to stop. The United States, despite a bombing which apparently killed no one, is currently protecting Iran. This is especially galling from my point of view in light of the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing, which killed over 200 Marines. We were there, on Reagan's orders, to protect the PLO from Israel, and our thanks was the killing by the Iranian proxy Islamic Jihad, which later rebranded itself to Hezbollah. Yet again, a conflict where the U.S. stepped in to protect an Islamic terrorist organization and had its troops attacked by another Islamic terrorist organization. This attack led to the rise of Hezbollah and handing that nation over to the control of Tehran. Israel's final frenzy is a reminder of the fact that our funding on Israel is as much a leash as anything else. In Trump's defense, the man never sleeps, and he looked tired. He did Netanyahu and the state of Israel a solid, and Netanyahu, instead of being thankful, publicly embarrassed Trump. Trump had every reason to be livid, and while his outburst may have been inaccurate, it was certainly well earned. Trump needed a win domestically to continue pushing an aggressive agenda, and Israel's actions were threatening that agenda. All that being said, and as an American, I shared Trump's frustration. From a purely military and diplomatic perspective, Bibi did the right thing for Israel. The IRGC, on the other hand, has had a bad couple years. Starting with the fall of Assad, its temporary though spectacular success on October 7th appears to be, in retrospect, a Pyrrhic victory. Hezbollah was literally neutered by the brilliant Beeper attack. Hamas, while still capable of inflicting some casualties, 7 IDF infantrymen were killed just this week in one attack, is a shell of itself, and Israel, shut off from continuing attacks in Iran by Daddy, is going to continue in Gaza, unless some solution is found that completely removes Hamas, which I don't see Iran or Hamas acquiescing to. Fig leaves and fake-outs are not going to be accepted by Netanyahu. The stakes have changed for not just the Likud government, but Israeli society as a whole. Nearly 2 years of prolonged and bloody conflict, and Netanyahu's conservative government has had few political challenges. The Israeli public and its hyper-democratic government continue to support Netanyahu's policies for now. In an interesting twist that betrays the weakness of the IRGC's public support, protests against the Ayatollahs were ongoing during 12 days of bombing. Ordinarily, a foreign attack solidifies support for the ruling government. It appears in this case the Israeli attack on Iran only weakens support for the IRGC. The fact the Israeli precision attacks caused scant civilian casualties is certainly part of it, but the Iranian people know that it is the intransigent IRGC that ultimately caused the attacks. In a side note, the energy infrastructure of Iran was built upon a presumption of unlimited gasoline and natural gas. Iranians pay only a few cents per gallon for fuel, but this past winter, the Iranian public suffered shortages of natural gas for heating, leading to unrest. Israel has apparently targeted the natural gas network in Iran. This may truly be the winter of Iran's discontent, if this proves to be accurate. We will see when the temperatures drop what the effect of this will be upon the population. I predict more uprisings. As I stated earlier in discussing this most recent conflict, Iran's nuclear weapons program will exist as long as the IRGC rules Iran. Iran has already stated they are restarting their program. It will never be truly destroyed, only delayed, despite President Trump's now trademark exaggerations to the contrary. Trump has demanded concrete proof of Iran's acquiescence to nonproliferation, starting with the surrender of the several hundred pounds of highly enriched uranium that they have managed to create over the past decade. Whether they do so or not is the real test. Until they do, the setback to the program will be temporary. How temporary is unknowable, probably by Iran at this point as well as Israel and the United States. Estimates range from months to decades, with the truth, I suspect, somewhere in between. 3 to 5 years if I was forced to make a completely uninformed guess. Israel, accused with justification for breathless exaggerations on how close Iran was to nuclear weapons, has stated openly that the Iranian nuclear program was significantly set back, admitting that Israeli agents inspected the various sites, providing the battle damage assessment, sometimes referred to as BDA. This is a bit of cheek on Israel's part. They are openly stating they have agents at the highest level of the Iranian government. Whether they do or not is irrelevant, but it demands that the assessment made in their name be accurate. Otherwise, Iran will know they don't have highly placed agents. So, for once, I trust Israel's assessment solely because they openly stated how they came of it. It has to be true for Israel's sake. The amount of distrust and discord this little admission must have made within the IRGC is incalculable. That might have been the most destructive attack of all, as accusations and counter-accusations of being an Israeli spy are now flying throughout the Iranian government. Already, hundreds have been arrested and some executed on suspicion of spying. Whether guilty or not will never be known. This has bought Israel some time to focus on Gaza and prop up a Lebanese government more like to that found in the 50s and early 60s. But either the IRGC relinquishes its grip on Iran, which it will almost never do voluntarily, or we will be discussing the next battle in this ongoing war between Israel and Iran. The opposition movement in Iran continues to be distrustful and desolate after the abandonment of the Green Revolution in 2009 by the Obama administration. Hot on the heels of various other movements across the Muslim world that were supported by Obama, this seems like a tragic failure in hindsight. Had this peaceful movement succeeded, none of the recent violence in Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Israel, and, of course, Iran would have happened. A distaste for foreign military excursion is understandable and, after 20 years of failure in GWOT, prudent. But the political abandonment of a friendly and peaceful movement is inexplicable in my view. Will the indecisive but admittedly impressive thumping of Iran by Israel and the United States open up additional diplomatic opportunities elsewhere? Who knows? But the conditions in the Middle East have changed significantly. Iran always assumed Israel would be incapable of exercising its will over Tehran. Its facade of invincibility has been torn down, never to be fully renovated. Conditions have changed, and with that brings chaos. And, as every infantryman knows, in chaos, there is profit. So perhaps the 12-day battle in this ongoing war may prove to be the beginning of the end. Who knows? And who knows what might happen in the next 36 hours that will render this entire podcast irrelevant. So, with that, next week I will attempt, yet again, to return to Grecian antiquity and the Battle of Syracuse. Thanks for listening today. If you want to help the show, please share today's episode on any social media sites you can. Check out the War 102 Buzzsprout website for more information and to send me a message. And, of course, my thanks to the subscribers who help keep the show going. Hope you all join me next week. See you soon.